Hi, I'm John Byrne with Poets and Quants. We have a special guest today, Jeremy Scheinwald, the founder of MBA Mission. He's a UVA Darden MBA who has really put together and grown one of the largest MBA admission consulting firms in the world. They have over 24 full-time consultants to help applicants with their journey to business school. And today, Jeremy's going to bring us through a sort of long-term planning document on how to really increase the odds of getting accepted to a highly selective business school by shaping your candidacy and probably over-preparing, right, Jeremy?
Indeed, indeed. Well, let's talk about getting everyone into their best application shape possible. You know, it's just after New Year's, so it's resolution time, right?
Indeed. And here, you know, a lot of people are filing their round twos, but really this is a presentation that's more in line for people who want to apply next year and the year after that, right?
Indeed, absolutely.
Okay.
I guess I'll take it from there. But before I do that, let me say that, you know, we were supposed to do this a week ago, and I think the reason why we didn't do it a week ago, it was your birthday. So happy birthday.
Well, thank you.
I think you,
it was my birthday, yes.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, thanks for having me, John, and thanks to all the Poets and Quants listeners. And this is, we're going to talk about making a plan for a year or two, even 3 years out. And, you know, I think a lot of the points here, I hope you'll go through and listen and say, you know, I have to do that, because I have lots of people who attend presentations like this and then they apply, and they, and like a month or two before they apply, they call us for a free consultation. They say, okay, I should have done all those things you told me to do, you know, the last 2 years. I didn't do them. How can I become my best applicant in the next week? And it doesn't work that way. And so, you know, these are broad, you know, long-term things that you have to act on. If there are individual questions you have, now is probably the time. So take us up on the consultation if you'd like. If you have specific questions about your own journey, right here, free consultation. I should get my little annotation pen going here. I'll look for it. Right here. So, not letting me do that. Okay. Can you see my cursor, John?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, so I'll use the cursor. Okay, great. So we're going to talk about the overprepared applicant's timeline to start. You know, when you have to have everything done. The application season is coming around much faster than you realize. Then we'll talk about becoming that overprepared applicant, and then a cheeky little look at what it means to be a perfect applicant, because there really aren't any. The overprepared applicant's MBA timeline. So we feel, if you look at this nice clean calendar here, nice clean lines, we're right now in the pre-stage. So round one applications are due in, you know, August, September. You know, they spread across a little bit of October at times. And the goal here is to get all of your work done in this pre-stage, so that when you apply, you're only doing the execution pieces. You're applying, you're brainstorming, writing your essays, you're meeting with your recommenders, you're completing your short answers, you're submitting your applications on time, and you're getting it all done in round one. And then you can do your interviews. You can see this is a nice, you know, pleasant graphic. And so the goal here is to do all these things, and we'll take you through them all before May, because in May, the application, the essays start to come out, and that's when you need to start working on the execution pieces. So getting the GMAT done beforehand, getting additional coursework done, visiting target schools, pursuing firm sponsorship, all of that happens before May. So right now it's January. If you're looking at this for a couple of years, you have time to do all these things. But really, you know, it's only a few months away and suddenly it's May. So getting all these things done is going to be a challenge, and you have to kind of start them today. Now, this is the well-organized applicant. You'll see the typical applicant next. This is the typical applicant. Starting these things in May. Oh yeah, I'll take the GMAT. Maybe I'll retake it. Maybe I'll take it again. Maybe it doesn't go well. Maybe this line is actually, is actually a little bit longer. Maybe this drags into September and it's stressful, and I'm working, and I've got my personal life and my community activities to deal with. You know, maybe some of these things don't even get done. Maybe I needed to take an HBX core class, or I needed to take an accounting class, and it doesn't even get done. And this one over here disappears. Maybe I can't visit my target programs because they don't open up until October or November after my application deadline. Now I'm working on certain, you know, essays for round one, and it's bleeding into round two, and I kind of want to be in round one. So all of these things, I'm spreading my application across 2 rounds. This isn't a bad spot to be in. I mean, lots of people are in this situation, but the point is, if you're listening today, be in this camp. Don't be in this camp, because this camp is a lot more stressful. You'll get it done, but it won't be as much fun for you. Certainly do not be in our next camp, which is for the latecomer. The latecomer looking at round 3 applications. I mean, so few people get into round 3 these days that Harvard just canceled round 3. They just said, it's not even worth it. We're wasting people's time, or we're wasting our own time. Let's cancel round 3. Now, maybe outside of the most elite programs, maybe there's a little bit of room in round 3 at some schools. But, if you're listening to this today, there's no excuse for you being in this category here with round 3, starting in round 3. So at a minimum, be in the mildly, rush category, but hopefully, I'll go back to my slide. Look how beautiful and nice this is. And then it will give you all that time, give you all this time for post-application steps. You can go to your attended students meetings. You can work your hardest to leverage scholarships. You can, take time off, go quit your job and travel. So this is where
Jeremy,
you want to be. Yeah.
Where does GMAT prep fit into this overprepared schedule? Okay,
so you're scooping me, because we're going to go towards that next. But we'll go that in like 3 or 4 slides. But the idea would be, and if you think about it, if you're going to be someone who needs to take a class, and your class is going to be, say take a class with the best, in our opinion, Manhattan Prep, our partners, they're excellent. If you take a 9-week class for them, and they recommend that you study for a minimum of a month, that's 13 weeks as a process. And then maybe you need to take it again a couple weeks later. So let's call it, 16 weeks. That's 4 months. We're in January, so you have February, March, April, May. If you start the GMAT today in January, you are really already bumping up against that, what we feel is our deadline for the overprepared applicant. So, the time pressure is already upon you. Let's talk about that, becoming the overprepared applicant. So how are you evaluated? I'd like you to think about this as waves. You can't just show academic potential and get into school. It's obviously not enough. You can have great grades and a great GMAT score and taking the CFA, and it doesn't matter. I remember talking to one of the admissions directors at Wharton, who said that he felt that, this is dating back a few years, but he said he felt that 70% of applicants could prove that they have the academic potential to get in. So it's obviously not enough. After that, you have your professional experience, your other activities, your community and volunteer experiences. I think we've all worked with someone who is really strong academically and is really successful professionally, who has poor interpersonal skills. So again, you need that bigger wave coming up where you show that you can fit in a community and you can equip yourself well, and you can, participate and make other people's experiences better. And that kind of feeds into mutual fit. So this is the way the schools are going to assess you. And our next slides, we're going to talk about improving each and every area. And we'll get to John's GMAT question as well. So getting stats ready. Think about that academic potential. Getting stats ready here. So best case, you show that you can manage the coursework and help your school's target average. You can't get in if you can't show that you can manage the coursework. They won't let anyone in if they think you're going to fail out. It's as simple as that. You can get in at times if you don't fit in with their averages. It's harder, but you can get in. Not everyone can be above average. That's the nature of averages. But you have to be able to show that you can manage the coursework. So how can you show that? Well, your GPA and your GMAT are the only factors that both can help your rankings and help reveal that you can manage the coursework. The GRE is getting there. They're starting to provide more averages. More schools are starting to provide their averages, but it's not quite a mature, competitive point for the school. They still vie for their supremacy in the GMAT world, although, as John wrote about, Stanford is kind of intentionally taking their foot off the pedal there a little bit. And then other areas you can show that you can manage the coursework through certifications, courses, etc. So let's talk about how you can do this with your GPA to start. So your GPA, I guess a simple answer for a GPA. What's a competitive GPA? 3.6, 3.7. What's more difficult? Well, someone's art history class is different than someone's engineering class, right? And so the schools are really looking to see, again, can you manage the coursework, not just as your average fit in? So, you know, did you take quantitative classes? Did you take management classes? John, I don't want to brag. I was a really good student. I had a very high GPA. I didn't take one quant class. It didn't matter. They needed to see something. It put a lot of pressure for me on the GMAT. I didn't have.
But you took your classes in Canada. Does that count?
I took my classes in Canada. That's true. But John knows me well. We go way back. But you know, like my high GPA was great for their averages, but it didn't help with establishing that I could manage the coursework. So for me, that put pressure on the GMAT for me at the time. That was the only show in town when I was applying. So somewhere within your GMAT or within your GPA or your GMAT and GRE, you need to be able to show competency and then hopefully fit in with their averages. So, you know, in terms of a GMAT score, what's a competitive GMAT score? Well, you know, a competitive GMAT score isn't just the simple, I lost my slide. Oops, sorry. Oh, I didn't lose my slide. Okay. Sorry, this is a little more sensitive than I'd like, but a competitive GMAT score, you know, it's not a simple like, oh, 720, that's it. It's, again, how does it relate to your GPA? If you've got a 3.7 in economics, there might be, in your GPA, there might be less pressure on your GMAT quant side because you've already established your ability to manage the coursework through your GPA. You need one solid indicator in one of those two areas. So we feel like the benchmark for competence in the GMAT is about a 46, 47 quant score. That's a raw score, not a percentile, or a 35, 36 verbal score. That reveals competence from the admissions committee's perspective. But of course, together, they only average a 660, and that's not enough from an averages perspective. So hopefully you're doing better on one side of the GMAT in order to reveal both competence and fitting in with the school's averages, okay? So what's a good score? Look at these scores. I mean, they're crazy, right? 730 is the average at Columbia, you know, 730 at Stanford, Penn. You know, these are very, very high scores. Obviously, again, not everyone needs to be above average, but this is these days what passes for, and you know, we can go to pages of schools. You know, it goes a little bit lower, but even outside, just at the verge of the top 20, you're still looking at around a 700 score, which is around a 90th percentile score. So, you know where you fit in with your averages, and then say to yourself, okay, can I show the competence piece? And if you can't show the competence piece, we'll come back to that in 1 second. And then the European schools as well. Canadian schools, it gets a little bit easier for you on the GMAT side. European schools are hovering around 700 as well. Now, what about the GRE, the new kid on the block, which is funny because the GRE has been around forever. First of all, the schools take the GRE seriously. So here are some great quotes from admissions directors, and Dee, while she's a former admissions director at Harvard, you know, she's still quite involved in the 2+2 program. And, you know, she said to me in her D-like way, well, here you go. We view these tests equally and have no preference. Can't think of a snappier way to say it than this. So, you know, they treat the GRE as the equal. You know, they don't want to disadvantage anyone. And what's really a good GRE score? About a 164 on each side. That's probably a worry-free GRE score. But as of yet, they're not really that worried about averages. So what that means is if you're someone who has a lot of test anxiety or just knows the tests aren't your thing, you probably want to take the GRE. If there's a test that you're going to do worse on, you want that test to be the GRE. If there's a test where you feel like, I'm a natural test taker, I'm going to do better, you want to take the GMAT because it'll help them lift their average and make you a more desirable applicant. So that's something to keep in mind. In terms of the GMAT versus the GRE, I'm going to drive that point home with a little data here. If you look at the GRE average here, so in our left column, the GRE averages, turning that into a GMAT equivalent, Stanford's is actually close to parity. Stanford's GMAT average, 732, is equal to about a 730 GMAT equivalent. But as you go further down, the story gets really interesting. Michigan Ross has a 720 GMAT average. Their GRE average at this point equals about a 640. That's an 80-point gap on expectations. Now, that doesn't mean that they are, you know, they're willing to accept any anyone with this score, what it means is that individual will have to have shown competence in other areas in order to show he or she can manage the coursework effectively. So the GRE for now, long-term planning, think to yourself, am I a natural test taker? Am I not? Which test do I want to take? Pardon me. And then ask yourself, am I going to be able to show competence through my GPA or through my testing? I don't know if I'm beating a dead horse on this one, but it's important conceptually. So when, and in addition to that, you can also take you can take designations. I'm not saying that if you're of no use for the CFA, that you go out there and take the CFA, but if you have CFA level 1, you have established your competencies. If you have, and all you need to worry about from a test or GPA perspective is the average. If you have the CPA, it's the same thing. I would argue if you have HBX core, it's a credential of readiness, it's the same thing. If you have that credential of readiness, it takes some of the emphasis off of competency in those other areas. So you need to, the long and short of it is, you need to think about all these pieces together and ask yourself these questions about competency and averages as you're putting together your long-term plan. And that might be one where you call us and we talk about this in the context of what you're revealing already to ensure that you have a solid long-term plan for yourself. So putting it all together, I know there's a crash course. Putting is your head spinning, John, or was that, we doing okay with that?
Well, I'm still wondering, when do I take my prep course for the GMAT? Your
okay.
idealist overprepared applicant timeline.
Take or retake the GMAT, GRE now, or enroll in your classes now. It's right here. At the end of this section, that's where you get the payoff. So consider a designation or certification now if you're worried about your revealing your competency. All these things, you must be done by May of your application year to be the hyper-organized applicant. So you need all that context, John, before I can give you that answer. It's a 5-minute lead up to that answer. But the answer for anyone who's listening is try and have all of this stuff done by May. So the GPA GMAT piece is the easy piece. It's sort of the easy piece to pin down scientifically. The rest of it is where the difference is made. As I said, talking to admissions directors, sometimes 60, 70% of the class is admissible on the basis of their stats. But where the difference is made is in the profile. So let's take a look at this individual here, okay? Who would you admit to your class, John? Would you admit the finance guy or the ethically conscious, diversity-oriented, personally committed, top-performing finance guy?
Oh, I know. This is a setup because you want the second one.
I do, John. I do. Come on, help me out here. Come on, you're supposed to be my Andy Richter.
No, that's true. Of course, there's this do-gooder thing going on, and they'll look for that.
Well, the idea is not just do-gooder. It's that an individual on a relative basis who can show, if you and I are on the same desk, John, and I'm highly ranked, you're highly ranked, but you go out there and you assist your college coach with rugby practice. It says something on a regular basis. It says something about your internal motor. It says that you have more drive. I'm going home and napping, and you're going out there and pushing yourself.
Okay, so Jeremy, the first guy could very well be the next president of the United States. The second guy could never be.
I'm not saying that I agree with it. I'm just saying this is how the evaluations work. You and I can have a separate session on the process itself and the logic therein. But when the school is trying to use past performance to predict future behavior, and if they're saying one person is pushing himself hard on a regular basis, started a diversity firm, is coaching rugby, is developed a finance 101 curriculum for his clients, and the other guy is highly ranked and did none of those things, who are you making the bet on? I'm making the bet on the second guy as much as I think the process can be a little fun.
And a lot of what you show here is it goes beyond self. In other words, you're giving part of yourself to help others as opposed to just helping yourself.
Yeah. I think it's, but I would actually argue that the schools are not necessarily inherently looking for values. They're a spin-off and positive, no doubt. They're very happy to see that people have values of giving back to others and helping create something bigger than themselves. But I think this is more about this kind of concept. I was talking about the internal motor. It's this person is independently motivated in creating things on his or her own. And that I think is really what makes the impression. We're not going to have to motivate. What did Ditka say? You know, those who win multiple championships motivate themselves. That's what they're saying here. You know, they're saying we want the guy who's motivating himself. My range of quotes is vast. I can start.
Okay, so Jeremy, here's the deal. What if I'm just the finance guy, but now I've just seen your presentation? Should I try to become the ethically conscious, diversity-oriented, personally committed, top-performing finance guy now?
Right. I don't think that anyone. We'll talk about this because it's another good question. I don't think anyone should try to be anything that they're not. That's not the idea. The idea is to maximize that which you are, and to focus on your sincere interest. So when we get to the community slides, and 3 slides or something like that, I'm going to address that point there because it's a very good one. So, you know, professional excellence, the schools they don't care whether you're a banker. They don't have any bias or ill will to pass, you know, the finance class. They don't care. You know, they're agnostic about, you know, your position. Consultants, bankers, they're looking for impact. Sure, there's a little bit of like brand prestige occasionally that comes with, you know, if you're working with Tesla, someone's going to, you know, realize that that's a cool cutting edge company these days, or, you know, whatever it is. You know, even you know, working with Ford in operations is prestigious. It's a company that represents excellence. So there is a little bit of brand bias, but really what matters most is impact in what you do. Now, we've helped a ton of different people, and we could write 10 slides for this, you know, of different people in different areas. So they're like I said, they're basically agnostic. Even I'm a speechwriter. I once helped a speechwriter, a third round guy getting to Harvard, who was a speechwriter. You know, it happens, but you know, the point here is not to say like I should be that guy or I shouldn't be that guy. It's maximizing the opportunities within yourself. So they're looking for promotions, you know, successful project leadership. But John, I think earlier referenced initiation, creation. People who at the highest levels at Harvard and Stanford, we see people who are able to say, I own that. That's mine. I made that. And it doesn't need to be, you know, I'll go back to Tesla and I'm behind the Model X and I made that. And, you know, they're not expecting you to do things that are superhuman. They're just saying within your position, you know, did the commonplace things remarkably well and were able to drive results and really own those projects. It's hard to put your finger on necessarily what that means, but it's all about that impact. It's not about time served. So when it comes to, you know, no stone unturned and making the most of your year until now, it's actually sometimes as simple as asking for work, taking control of your career, not waiting for things to happen. Now, between now and May, or now in September, in theory, you know, when you're applying, just seizing your opportunities to lead at work and putting your hand up and making sure you're noticed. Oftentimes there are softer leadership opportunities, you know, working on mentorship, diversity groups, managing training, things like that. Again, it needs to be impactful. Just saying, I went back to my campus, I ran training. That's not going to get you to school, but, you know, owning a process and creating something at your firm can help you to say, hey, again, John was that finance guy, Jeremy's that finance guy, John's the finance guy who started a diversity group because he was interested, not because he did it to do it, okay? The same principle is true of community endeavors. So it's not an expectation, it's an opportunity for you to separate yourself out and reveal that internal motor. You know, it's a really wonderful opportunity, but the example I often give to finally answer John's question is this. If there is across from Manhattan Prep's office in Manhattan on 25th, there is a massive, massive shelter. And if you are uncomfortable around homeless people, because it's convenient, I would not, you know, across the street from, in this case, my office space, I wouldn't volunteer there in theory if I was uncomfortable, because I wouldn't be opening myself up to having impact. They don't care about you spending 2 hours a week there and punching the clock. They're not looking for time served. So you should pursue your community activities as if you were pursuing your job. You would never take a job that was a terrible fit for you. Don't put yourself in a position where you're pursuing community activities that are a bad fit because they are convenient for you. If you are exceedingly, you know, it's meaningful for you to be involved with the homeless community and you go there and you end up expanding some sort of, you're a teacher, and you end up expanding some sort of educational program. And because people realize you take an interest, they put you on the board of the organization. It happens because you are vested in the experience. And so, it's not about do-gooderism, and it's not about padding your resume. It's about sincere, you're going to succeed if you give yourself the best chance of succeeding by doing something in an environment that is meaningful to you. Does that make sense? Is that a good long-term response? A good
Totally.
Okay. And we find that people make those mistakes. And I talked to an HBS admissions officer the other day who said nothing drives her more crazy than seeing someone who just writes oh, I started volunteering at an old folks home 6 months ago because I was applying to business school. That's what it says effectively on their resume. They don't realize it says that, but she says she kind of finds it nauseating. And it doesn't mean that a short-term stint can't be effective, but if it's really effective, it's got to have that real impact. Okay, so what can you do? Talked about this already a little bit, but there's still time to build the community track record if you are really investing yourself. So, we had an applicant a couple years ago who in about 4 months, he was worried. It seemed like he was trying to pad, but in 4 months he had created a charitable initiative. His grandmother was at a community hospital. He created a fundraising initiative for this hospital, and it really went viral, and people got really involved. And over 4 months, he raised a lot of money and was asked to join the charitable board of the hospital. The reason why it wasn't just window dressing is because it was sincere and there was clear impact. So go out there, invest yourself in the things that you want to be invested in, pursue this like you would a job. Consider opportunities that bring you continuity. So if you were, a rugby coach for 4 or 5 years and you had to take 2 years off because your consulting job was too busy, and now you're transitioned to be internal corporate strategy at a big firm and your schedule is more manageable, don't pick up something new. Maybe consider picking up that rugby coaching. It shows a little continuity, so it doesn't seem like you're doing something just to pad your resume. But always commit yourself, not your clock, and think about that impact. Think about adding that dimension and not just putting a line in your resume.
And Jeremy,
okay.
Merely being a volunteer versus being a leader of some kind makes a big difference here, doesn't it?
Well, I think inherently, leadership and impact are probably correlated. You can be an impact player without being the leader of something. I think that the schools are certainly more interested in substance and title, but if you have both, fantastic. Absolutely. There are a lot of people who are sort of, I don't mean to be condescending about this, but are sort of on champagne boards, oh yeah, I go to the openings and I'm on the junior board of the local museum or something like that. That doesn't count for much. If you are actually doing something, then it counts for something. But if you're just attending something, you're a member of a society, they don't care. It doesn't show that motor that I keep referring to. Okay? So your personal profile, this is something where a lot of people just completely ignore as applicants. And they can play the same role as community endeavors. They don't need to have community endeavors. They need to know that motor is running. And so here's my call it, that strong internal motor. So John, you're a hilarious guy. If you went out there and you started your stand-up routine right now, and you were always intending to go out there and get on stage, and finally you went out there and you did it, and you did 15 dates between now and September, it would say something about you. It would say something. You have the courage to go out there and put yourself on the line and take a big risk and get some creativity. I'm not saying that if you don't have a funny bone in your body, go out there and start your comedy career. And I'm not saying if you've never written a poem, just go out there and start writing poems. Or, but my point is, if there's something you're otherwise going to do that you've been wishing you did or wanted to push yourself to do, doing it between now and your application could help make a difference. I'm not suggesting that you start start a random blog, but if you have some sort of, membership in a community, and you can go out there and it really, blows itself up, even if it's something that's well trodden, like cooking. If you can go out there and, really, create your community and show that you've had your impact and have some, clear, tangible results of your work in that area, then, and show that there's impact, then that's fine. My point is just, they're not solely looking for work experience. They're looking to to understand that you're a multidimensional human being. And this might even be moonlighting for a friend's startup. You know, like it's not like one's better. Like, oh, I could have volunteered at the old folks home, and they like, you know, they like that more than the startup. If your friend has a startup and he's a finance guy and you're a marketing person, and you want to take the lead on that, that's a great opportunity to show another dimension of your application.
Here's the other thing. It takes you out of the pile, right? There are a lot of investment bankers. There are a lot of consultants. There are a lot of analysts in the tech industry and other industries. But how many of them do stand-up comedy? How many of them do a blog? So this is the way to get yourself out of the big pile of candidates that all look too similar.
Absolutely. You stand out a little bit. And again, it's kind of showing that real sense of like commitment to yourself, because they can extrapolate from that you are going to be successful going forward. So, you know, people are always like, oh, well, I travel a lot, or I'm an adventurous guy. I do a lot of triathlons. It's tough to differentiate on those lines. But if you really, really, really have done something inordinate in those areas, it is possible. But again, much like anything, you know, pursue the things that are meaningful to you and just make sure that they blossom before you apply. So if you've got 3 stand-up dates today, you know, make sure you do 10 more before you apply. I'm making it up. I don't know the exact number, but make sure that it's a real thing. So yeah, still time to build that personal track record. I'm scooping my own slides here. Take passions to a logical end and really think about that impact, even on yourself. So those are the main pieces from like a developing your profile perspective: your GPA, GMAT, or GRE. Develop your professional story, your community story, and your personal story between now and May. But there are other pieces as well. So the programs, MBA programs, are not alike. They are vastly, vastly different, and people don't spend enough time thinking about those differences. And I could probably do a 45-minute session with John just on that. I'm happy to if you invite me back. But the point is getting to know them so that you can express fit appropriately. So this is an example of the type of statement in an essay that people will make, sort of with intent, with a little bit of seriousness, like they mean this. This person means this. You know, Columbia is a great risk for entrepreneurs. New York City is great school for entrepreneurs, and New York City is an exciting place for me to take professional risks because so many great fortunes have been built there. I really believe the Lang Center for Entrepreneurship offers the wealth of resources necessary for me to take my next step as an entrepreneur. What's wrong with this, John? You're a writer. Am I putting you on the spot?
You know, it doesn't read as genuine to me.
It's what it is it's generic, right? So I could say, you know, Harvard is a great school for entrepreneurs, and Boston is an exciting place for me to take professional risks. So this person probably went and toured the campus and walked around and just didn't even realize that he or she was just not connecting his or her message with the school, and it just seemed like he or she had not done his or her homework. So how about this? As an aspiring entrepreneur in the online education field, I know that flexibility would be critical to my success. I'll truncate this for a time. For this reason, I would seize the opportunity to participate in the entrepreneurial sounding board process. I move my board here. By scheduling a session with Russell Sarger, whose vast experience in online education will no doubt lead to an invaluable critique of my ideas. This person knows why he wants to be at Columbia. He is sending a message to the school: I did my homework. You have a finite number of places to offer people in this class, and if you offer one to me, you can you have a greater sense that I will come because I am proving to you that I know how I fit in here, that I spent my time and put in the effort to get to know the school. So this is the type of thing, it takes time to develop your argument. It doesn't mean go on the website and just, you know, pick up their 4 most popular professors. Go out there and learn about the programs. And, you know, and we'll talk about this in 1 second. Time is running out. So school visit programs finish in like March or April, and then you can't really go until October. So if you're listening to this, schedule your class visit now for next year, because otherwise you won't be able to go. And you won't be able to say, you know, when I walk through the brand new Klarman Center, or whatever it is that you want to say in your application that shows that you've done your homework. You can check out Poets and Quants as sponsored MBA admissions insiders guides. They're very, very thorough resources on the schools. Check out our guides. They're the best thing short of visiting the schools. But if you can, visit the schools because it means a lot. Some of the schools are very insecure. I don't know. I hope I'm not talking a turn, but I find that Wharton and Columbia are a little bit insecure. They're worried you're going to spurn them for Harvard or Stanford. And so they want to know that you've done your homework. If you live in New York and you don't take the time to go to Wharton, it says something. If you live in New York and you go to Wharton a year in advance, it also says something. So let the important aspects of the program sink in. So what do you need to do? Oh, and also make sure that the school aligns with your goals. You know, when you're executing, you need to be able to give them a plausible goal, something they believe that you can achieve. So if you're a software engineer and you're saying you want to work at a hedge fund, you know, it's hard for people with private equity experience to get jobs at hedge funds. It's hard they hire a lot of mathematicians and some people in private equity, but a software engineer is not going to get that job. So they may love you, but you're inadvertently showing that you do not fit with them because they can't employ you afterwards. Or they just might not have something in your space. You know, I want to enter retail marketing. You have no relevant courses and you don't have those recruiters come to campus. Of course, no one will say that as a quote. It's meant a little in a bit of a cheeky way. But, you know, the point is that, you know, they have to know that you're employable and that they can get you there. So this is what you need to do. You need to start to, you know, build a network where you can really, you know, understand the school's capabilities and resources. And you can go visit, you can talk to alumni at your firm, talk to friends who are at the schools, and really try to say, look, like, I've got a depth of knowledge at the school that shows that I really know what I'm getting into and I did my homework early. John, you want to jump in? Was there something there?
No, I'm thinking, boy, you have to have a lot of discipline to do all this and to do it early.
Yes, you definitely do. And there's more. There's more. I feel like it's like those old 70s commercials. And if you order now, you know, pursue company sponsorship. One of my first clients ever is, you know, he went out. I said to him, you know, you're at this financial services firm that's growing rapidly. You want to go to business school? Go to the HR department. See if you're the first MBA they might ever send back. And he did, and they paid for his MBA. You know, that's the type of thing, you can't do that the day of. Cultivate your recommenders. I talked to someone yesterday who had an amazing athletic legacy, and but he's gone into the professional world. I think this person should get a letter from an old coach. You got to call that person now. Stoke the fire a little bit. You know, go through existing applications. Think to yourself, how would I answer those questions now? See if you've got any holes. Update your resume now. It's a simple thing. It probably takes 2 or 3 hours to update your resume. It's 2 or 3 hours you won't need to spend the night before you apply, which is when a lot of people do that if they're not being careful. And also, you know, get started with your consultant now. We've already got January 1st. We've already got some consultants who are book solid and won't open up their rosters until round 2. So with us, at least, we book earlier and earlier every year. So with that, you know, coming back here, which candidate would you admit? Well, not just the finance guy who's highly ranked and promoted ahead of peers, but also all those things and someone who can reveal purpose and connect their target program. That's the guy who's getting it. Or the woman who's getting it. I have 2 daughters. Important to say those things. So overprepared doesn't mean perfect. You can do all these things now. Some of you will have problems that you can't overcome. You know, maybe you can't change your GPA. You know, you goofed off for the first year. It's okay. We've seen people overcome problems. We've seen people overcome crazy problems. Maybe you and I can write an article for Poets and Quants on the problems that we've seen people overcome. You know, all sorts of crimes, DUIs and crazy things like that. Most people look at their tiny problem and really worry about it. There are bigger ones. Plagiarism and suspensions. We've seen people get into top schools with that. So usually, you know, a small blemish is not the end of the world. 1, several is a problem. So this is highly scientific, John. I want to warn you. I know we're artists here, but this is we're the poets side of Poets and Quants. But this is highly scientific.
I like this.
So, you know, if you look at this, there's the science, the sunshine. Okay, you got a GPA that's above the average. Your GMAT is above the average. You've got CFA level 2. You've got professional impact initiative. You've been great at your office. You've achieved in your community. Wow, this guy looks perfect. You've got your goals, which connect with the school. You don't show fit and you don't execute well, this person's not getting in. There are enough people who have all those credentials where the school's going to say, this person is a fill-in-the-blank answer for us. We're Kellogg. We've got thousands of people who want to come here. Why take one person who didn't take the time to learn about us. It just doesn't matter to us that this person's got an above average GPA or GMAT and has done well in their work. They probably want to be somewhere else. Let's let them go there. So let's look at someone else. Great GPA, great GMAT, great other, haven't shown professional impact. That person fundamentally is a bad fit with any program. This is the one thing, if you haven't shown enough professional impact, you're not going to get into your target program. It's hard to know what enough is. We can talk about that in the free consultation. But if you haven't shown professional impact, you're not getting in. Let's say your GPA is a little bit under the average. Your GMAT's is above the average, okay? You have no designations, no other, but you've shown competency through your GMAT and your GPA. You've been a professional impact player. You have achievement beyond the professional sphere. You've got your goals down. You fit with the target program. You execute well. Even though your GPA is a little bit low, this is the type of person who's getting into a top school. No one is perfect. You can put that cloud and GMAT and put a sunshine and a piece of the sunshine decal in GPA. As long as the one is not totally disastrous, the same answer should be there. Everyone's entitled to a little bit of a cloud. There's no one perfect. I've been in this business for 15 years. I've never seen a perfect applicant. There are individuals that I could put big bets on, but certainly not perfect. So that's really it. I'm going to just quickly, I'm even going to skip the About MBA mission because I think we've been working on time, but I think we do something very special as a firm, and I'm very happy for anyone to call us and ask us about that. And I want to leave time for John to ask me a few questions here.
So does gender or race count in MBA admissions?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. That's sort of a stats piece of the question, because it does, the schools are interested in a little more than your GPA and your GMAT. So they want to say, oh, we've got 65 countries represented, and we're working towards parity between men and women, and we've got strong minority representation. And it's not just for stats. I think there's certainly a body of work which would say that diversity is better for classroom discussion and better for professional performance. In the long run. And so those things do matter, but I think we're at a stage now where I'm going to be honest. I think when I started, there was still some. I hate to use this word, but there was still some tokenism when I started this 15 years ago. I think all demographics are super competitive. It's not like, okay, I'm a woman, I'm getting in. The women who get into top programs are exceedingly impressive. Exceedingly impressive. The women who get rejected from top programs are exceedingly impressive. So they want to have that diversity, but I don't think there are very many compromises.
Okay, so and if I follow this schedule and do all this work early, how does it affect my chances of getting a scholarship?
I think scholarships are. I think you can do all these things and it'll make you the most comprehensive applicant possible and make you your most competitive applicant. In that sense, as your most competitive applicant, you will have enhanced your ability to get a scholarship, but scholarships are wildly unpredictable. And, sometimes they just depend on the performance of an endowment that you haven't really even thought about that. There's just someone sitting there saying, oh, I've got no scholarships. And it's like, well, I don't know, maybe their endowment had a tough year last year and you don't know that. So it's very, very hard to predict scholarships, but you certainly are putting yourself in your best position.
Right. I mean, one of the takeaways for me on your presentation is that, my God, there's so many different things you got to do. So I'm wondering, for the person who can do it, get early, be disciplined, and take this approach, how do you organize yourself? Because there's so many different aspects. Is the kind of thing where you literally create folders for your recommenders, folders for your apps, folders on each school that you're interested in? What do you do?
I think all that's like a person. I'm just chuckling because we had one applicant this year. I've never seen such organization. It was like a superpower. I've never seen such organization. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. I would say half of our applicants set up schedules for themselves, and then we say your schedule is only as good as your ability to keep it. And like most of them, life intervenes. They get busy at work or they've got a social event.
Sure.
It's totally understandable. This woman followed it to, it was unbelievable. It was like, I'm going to bring a tear to my eye.
Wow.
She was incredible. You know, I think it's a marathon, not a sprint. And I think the mistake is, if you go back to those calendar slides, some people try to sprint a marathon, and you can't do it. And so you end up having some compromises. And so, you know, if you are listening now and you are several months out, there's still time to get organized, not feel overwhelmed. If you are listening for a year and a half from now, or 2 years, 2.5 years from now, you know, you can say, okay, I'm going to bite off the GMAT piece, and I'm going to bite off the designation piece. And while I do that, I'm going to dip my toes into community service and find something that's meaningful to me, and I'll ramp that up when I'm done with the GMAT. And, you know, and suddenly these things start to be a little more manageable. And like, it's not human, it's not, I'm going to admit, it's not my human nature. It's not human nature to do these things bite-sized, but if you do it, you're going to have a lifetime of impact.
Okay, Jeremy, last question.
Yeah.
Over all the years that you've been in business, since you founded MBA Mission, you've no doubt counseled, and your consultants have counseled over thousands and thousands of candidates.
Absolutely.
Is there any evidence that if you start early, you'll have a more successful outcome than if you start later? And I don't mean at the last minute.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you know, do we have quantitative evidence? No. I mean, you know, because this is a process, generally speaking, where you can only go, most people go through once. And so you can't tell what would have otherwise happened. But, you know, we certainly feel like people who start early, and, you know, I mean, especially with something like the GMAT, you know, where it's going to bedevil you for long periods of time. But, you know, are really able to add other dimensions to their candidacy, you know, and just present themselves as a much more leveled stool, you know, 3 or 4 legs on that stool instead of one. Those people do way better. There's no, we feel a lot of gratification when we have a long-term planning package, and we feel a lot of gratification. We see people who've taken those steps, who are like listening and doing, and they apply and they have success. I mean, it's, you know, preparation is everything in most most jobs, and this is one where it can make a huge difference.
All right. Hey, Jeremy, this is a great presentation. I think it's going to be helpful to a lot of different people. So thank you. It was terrific.
Thanks for having me, and hope to do it again on another topic.
Sounds good. Hey, this is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. Thanks for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this presentation by Jeremy Scheinwald, founder of MBA Mission, one of the leading MBA mission consulting firms in the world. Good luck on your MBA journey.
Thanks so much for having me.